How should Christians relate to politics? That is the question we will explore today. Welcome back to Liberty's Hill, where we explore how can we create a world of human flourishing with liberty, justice, dignity, and prosperity. I'm Dr. Bill Brannan, a pastor at Life Springs Church in Liberty Hill, Texas. Politics deeply affects the quality of people's lives. Therefore, God cares deeply about politics. At a fundamental level, politics are present wherever there are human institutions. That includes family, business, church, and state. The biblical purpose is for politics to serve human dignity and flourishing. When we ask how Christians should relate to politics, however, we are generally speaking about the state. In my mind, there are two primary elements. The first is good people holding office, and the second is laws and systems that agree with reality. In general, all organizations and institutions are reflections of the quality of people involved, but primarily the leaders. Without good people running the government, it will never serve human dignity and flourishing. The first characteristic of good leaders is moral integrity. We need people who are virtuous and not corrupt. Yet that is not enough. They also need to have the wisdom and skills to govern well. Without both of these characteristics, we will never have good government. The second element consists of laws and systems that agree with reality. The reason I chose that word is because, as a Christian, I believe the world was created by God, and therefore, good government will be based on laws and systems that promote human dignity and flourishing in the world as it actually is. For example, Plymouth Colony was founded by Puritans who were deeply devoted to God, but they implemented socialism. They implemented it because the idea sounded like it would create a world of human flourishing, but it didn't. The colony almost perished because socialism is a system that does not agree with the world as it actually is. Thankfully, they changed direction and gave every family their own field. Soon the colony was flourishing because people became industrious, because they would directly benefit from their labor. The point is that moral integrity is not enough to lead well. Leaders also need the wisdom and skill to create a world of human flourishing. The question we need to ask is, how do we develop the type of people who are able to govern well? I suggest that preparation begins in the home and is developed through education and religious instruction. The home is meant to be a microcosm of a well-ordered society governed by love. It is the first place we learn the value of service, self-sacrifice, and that people are what matter the most. All other forms of government and politics are meant to be an extension of family and its values. An education based on wisdom and virtue is the next stage of preparation for good leaders. The last piece is religious instruction, for it teaches us to govern not for self-interest, but to serve a world of human flourishing. In the biblical model, Levites instructed the judges concerning God's law, but the judge, not the Levite, governed and administered justice. Religious instruction gives leaders the blueprint of a social architecture that reflects heaven rather than hell. Religious instruction also clarifies the personal moral requirements of governors and the God-created boundaries of their authority. When governors operate within their ordained limits of authority, they are to be obeyed. But when they go beyond these limits, they are to be resisted. That is part of the inheritance of Western civilization and was expressed in our founders' mottos, no king but King Jesus, and rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. In Scripture, when the leaders forbade the apostles from preaching the gospel, they respectfully told them that their conscience required them to obey God. The Hebrew midwives were commanded by Pharaoh to kill all of the male Hebrew children, and they disobeyed and even lied to Pharaoh about it. God blessed them because of their civil disobedience. When governments establish laws that are outside of their ordained sphere, our moral responsibility is to resist them. Nazi Germany is a perfect example. It was lawful in Germany to exterminate Jews, but that law was outside the ordained sphere of governmental authority. It transgresses God's law and natural law. Governments are ordained to protect the rights of man as our founders rightly understood. When governments transgress those rights, they become illegitimate. The point is that good leaders create a world that reflects heaven. Bad leaders create a world that reflects hell. When considering how Christians should relate to politics, we need to understand that politics are downstream from culture. If we're going to create a world of human flourishing, our emphasis needs to be on cultural transformation. Antonio Gramsci, a Marxist who is one of the fathers of modern neo-Marxism, wrestled with why the Marxist revolution did not prevail in the West, contrary to Marx's predictions. What he said is very insightful. This is quoted from Robert Smith's article on cultural Marxism. The problem then was that the culture of Western society was blocking the proletarian uprising. As Gramsci wrote in the prison notebooks, the state was only an outer ditch behind which there stood a powerful system of fortresses. Furthermore, these fortresses were inseparable from the West's Christian heritage, and despite the secularizing impact of the Enlightenment, remained undergirded by a latent Christian worldview. Consequently, until Christianity's cultural hegemony was broken, no communist revolution would take place and no utopia could arrive. In short, unless and until Western culture is de-Christianized, Western society will never be decapitalized. How might this be accomplished? By an army of Marxist intellectuals undertaking what was later called the Long March through the institutions of power. That is, by gradually colonizing and ultimately controlling all of the key institutions of civil society. As Gramsci put it, in the new order, socialism will triumph by first capturing the culture via infiltration of schools, universities, churches, and the media, by transforming the consciousness of society. The larger goal, however, is control of all the major institutions of political society as well. For example, the police, law courts, civil service, local councils. Gramsci referred to this process as becoming state. What we need to realize is that the institutions undergirded by a Christian worldview that he described were enculturated in the West. They did not happen by chance. What he shows us is that political institutions are a reflection of cultural institutions. Therefore, our emphasis must be on rebuilding the cultural institutions of society if we want to transform politics. It is about developing the type of leaders that can create a better world. Please let me know what you think in the comments below, and please subscribe to my channel.